David, 2024 promises to be an interesting year in food and agri. Reading a lot in the newspapers of some of the changes, but could you give a sense from a perspective of people who are looking for new employees, who are looking for candidates, or for indeed from the perspective of candidates themselves, would you give 2024 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb up, or is 2024 in or out?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say 2 thumbs up. I think from a candidate's perspective in 2021 and 2022, really a candidate's market. The comments that we would make to our clients is think 20, 30, 50. You need to, back in those days, it's going to take 20% longer to find your candidates. You're going to have to pay about 30% more than you expect, and you need to make hiring decisions about 50% faster. That is in the rearview mirror. 2024, we see a lot more equilibrium in terms of supply and demand of candidates and employers looking for candidates. I call it a cautious optimism for 2024 in terms of the talent market and finding people that really are impact players in organizations that we do business with.
So I suppose people watching this, what they really want to know is what does that mean from a salary perspective? What does Kincannon read? What's being seen from the perspective of are salaries going up? Will they go up as strongly as before? What would your answer to that?
Yeah, the short answer is no. We saw a huge, again, surge in salaries in 2021 and 2022 post-pandemic, particularly in the U.S. And some of this is very different overseas and in different countries that have had different economic rebounds. But in the States, talking in general, we're seeing a softening of the salaries. Recently, there were a couple of studies that came out that executive compensation has actually gone down in the last quarter about 6% in terms of people being hired. And so we see a normalization, which we think is good for the market. And candidates need to be remunerated properly and well for the positions that they're being placed into, but gone are the days of asking for anything and getting a blank check.
And is that just a salary perspective? I mean, are people finding other ways to compensate executives that they're looking for that are not purely based on money?
Yeah, that has never gone away. Mm-hmm. I think this combination of, we call it total compensation in the industry. It's the remuneration, it's bonus, it's location, it's upward mobility, it's who you work with, your decision-making abilities, span of control. It's all kinds of things, benefits, vacation, time off. All of those things are like a cake. And if baked properly for the candidate and for the client, it's really a perfect way to find the right candidates and bring them on board.
So take me through then maybe non-financial motivators. We hear these different generations being described obviously by their acronyms, but do you think that is that something general or is it very specific? And if so, how do companies motivate executives to join?
So certainly younger generations are taking on more and more executive roles. There's no question.
Like your Gen X's, your Gen Z's.
For sure, yeah. Thank you, Gen X. I'm Gen X and don't consider myself young anymore, but we see differences I mentioned the cake earlier. We see differences in the kind of the ingredients, in a cake, how sweet is it, how fluffy is it, et cetera. Those things change, but the mix itself remains the basics. You've got to come with as an employer, you've got to offer your employees all of the above in the right strategic mix for that individual. I think the best placements that we make for candidates, regardless of their generation, is when we have a candid conversation about what they as candidates need and want and how they prioritize and value in a total compensation package, and go back to our clients and work with them to create an offer that meets the needs of that candidate.
So David, relocation has always been a factor. In fact, I've heard recently that we count on $85,000 as a number that that we throw around as for somebody who's a homeowner, $35,000 is the cost if they're going to be renting. These costs have always been there, but they still seem significant. To what degree does that influence a candidate's decision to come and join a company at executive level?
Relocation in general, because it taps into so many different things, has always been a major issue and impediment for making a job change for candidates, and has always been a major cost for employers bringing on the right people. That, whether you're in the middle of a pandemic, whether the economic times, you're in boom times or not so much boom times, that is a major issue. Generationally, we see that individuals that are younger tend to be much more averse to making any sort of a relocation change. We don't see that trend changing at all.
Yeah, but take me through a little bit this, because I think this is an interesting one from the perspective of even moving into remote working. We saw COVID changing. We've had a new normal post-COVID, I think, in terms of working practices. How does that play in?
Well, McKinsey, I think, said it best. During the pandemic, someone asked a smart person at that firm what was going to stick and what was not going to stick during the pandemic, and their answer was, anything that we like will stick and anything that we don't like will not stick. And in fact, hybrid workplace and working from home and some sort of telecommuting, I think is the new normal. Now, how much and which positions and how long or how much time you have to spend into the office, et cetera, that is still getting worked out. It's really almost on a client by client basis. We see certainly positions that there's no way they can be telecommuting or hybrid, just due to their responsibilities, et cetera. And we see others that when clients come to us and ask to find a wide range of candidates, we tell them that the more they can offer a hybrid workplace, the greater the candidate pool will be for them to attract talent in a tight market. So these are not easy questions to answer, and they're challenging for our clients today. There isn't one answer for everybody, for sure.
So for 2024, do you think hybrid is in or out?
In.
It's in. You've heard phrases of people trying to look as though they're going back to work because they're being forced by their employers. You know, this phrase, coffee badging, I learned yesterday.
That's a new one.
A new one about coming in, appearing, grabbing your coffee, being seen by your boss and then leaving again. A sense from Kincannon Reid as to whether is it possible to force people to go back to work at executive level, or how should that be handled?
Look, forcing anybody to do anything on either, whether you're a candidate being passive aggressive by showing up and doing coffee badging, that's my thought about that, or having really an employer, enforcing things, I don't think is great leadership, and I don't think is a great way to engage your workforce. You've got to work with them to come up with reasonable expectations of how much time they need to be in the office. And I'm a big fan of deliverables, and if things are getting delivered and the quality is high and the person can do this from a remote perspective and it doesn't really create other problems for the organization, I think we need to be more open to those possibilities. Having said that, we do a lot in food and ag. Well, we exclusively focus on food and ag, and there are positions that due to growing things or processing, et cetera, that there's just no way you can do that from a remote perspective.
So I suppose I could put all of these factors under the bucket of cultural fit. If you're given the choice between finding an executive who's got competence, the ability to do the job, but perhaps doesn't have the cultural fit with the company they're joining, or picking somebody who's got that cultural fit, how important is culture in the setting of your choice of candidate?
Culture is used a lot in our business, and unfortunately, it means a million things to a million different people.
Exactly.
Okay? So I like to try to be more specific when we talk about culture, but here's what I would say. Individuals that come into your company have to have the technical ability to do the work. Okay. I don't think there's a trade-off between culture and technical ability. If you're hiring people that are a great cultural fit but don't have the technical ability, I think you're running a risk. The goal for for employers should be, and the types of individuals we try to find for our clients, have absolutely the technical expertise that they need, and they fit the culture, however that's defined by the organization. It's a both and an and, not an either and an or. Now, describing that culture and diving into things like, well, what's the currency in your organization, and you know, what are the expectations? How do you make decisions? Things like that. All of those things factor into what culture is like, and we try to dig in with our clients to understand really what that means to them when they say cultural fit, and find candidates that match.
So let me take you through some quickies then from the last 20, 30 years, resumes, CVs, very important. You actually have a whole industry of people that can help you design them properly. 2024, is the resume still in or is it out?
Resume will always be in. However, I get calls at least once a week from really savvy and smart candidates looking for positions, wanting some advice. Maybe they've been gainfully employed a long time, they're thinking about making a change, or maybe they've been let go and they have not been in the market for a while, and they always ask my advice about resumes. I say spend 95% of your time networking and connecting with strategic organizations that you think you can add value to, and 5% of your time fixing up your resume. And I would, with that networking, I always advise individuals that they, after meeting with those decision makers or people at an organization like that, only then do you really give your resume, because you've learned about all of what that organization wants or that individual is looking for during your networking session, and then you go back and you massage your resume to really meet the conversation that you already had. It's in that order. It's not the other way around.
So custom fit, custom design.
Totally.
To what you know that your eventual customer is going to want.
For executive placements that we work with, yes.
And executive placements from a LinkedIn. Is LinkedIn in or out for executives in 2024?
Well, LinkedIn is always in. Using it from a candidate perspective as your only vehicle to find your next position, that would be an out. Okay, I think from again executive placements, I think LinkedIn is an absolute necessity, but it is one arrow in the quiver, and you've got to have a lot of arrows to get the position that you want as an executive with a client that you want to work with.
And if you're advising somebody doing searches, increasingly I think they would probably say to you, I can find fantastic candidates on LinkedIn. Why would I use an executive search group?
If you're hiring based only on LinkedIn, one of our clients said it best several years ago, it was the easiest way for him to make a fast and poor hiring decision by using LinkedIn by itself. It's a great tool. Again, it's one of many tools that you have to use to really make a great hire and bring in an impact player to your company.
So how does Kincannon Reed use LinkedIn? How does it help the executive search, or does it help the executive?
It does. We absolutely use LinkedIn. It's one of the databases that we use to vet our candidates, to find candidates. It's not the only one. We belong to associations that have lists of individuals. We pay for that privilege. We have our own proprietary database that's unparalleled in food and ag placements. Over the last 42 years, we've compiled names and information in that proprietary database that helps us. And then, of course, we have our own networks, people that we meet, new people, and people that we know already in our, to use an old term, Rolodexes, that we can find and help when we need to work with the client.
And if somebody's looking for a candidate and they say, I'd like to go further, I'd like to use psychometric testing. Lots of people are in favor, lots of people think it's not particularly effective. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I think of the hiring process as kind of a polyphonic stereo system, surround sound, call it. If you went to your favorite movie, like, I don't know, Star Wars is a good example, and you only had one speaker blaring at you, you would really lose out on the total experience of watching your favorite movie. Well, the hiring process to me is like a multifaceted surround sound. And it's got lots of different speakers that need to be turned on and balanced in order to make a great decision. Psychometric profiling is one of those speakers. To use it by itself, blaring, and only use it would be a mistake. Okay, just like it would be a mistake to just use your gut. Okay, that would be another speaker in the sort of surround sound system. So we try to create really a nice symphony of sound for our clients that have a lot of different tools and information for them to make the best decision. Only then, I think, do we see the placement levels that we have. Our people stay after we hire them at incredibly high rates, and that's because it's this balanced view of hiring with our clients.
Great. I suppose this time of the year, I feel many of my friends choose to leave the companies they're with, and it appears on LinkedIn, open for work, looking for work. Your opinion on that? What should you communicate on LinkedIn if you have either left your previous employer or if you're now ready to look for a new position?
Well, Aidan, I don't know, what do you think about that? How would you, if you were looking for a job, do you think it would best portray your capabilities and your expertise if you sort of broadcast that on LinkedIn? What do you think?
I suppose when I see open for work, open to work, it comes across negatively to me. I suppose my perspective has always been that I seek people that are being sought by others, and when it looks like somebody's been dropped or is no longer in favor, then I have that question in my mind, would I like to hire this person? So I would say no. I've even recommended some of my friends to set up their own consulting businesses, even if they're not consulting, just create a name of something that you're working with rather than appear to be in the marketplace looking for work. But I think it's even for me broader than that. I think LinkedIn can be a very powerful tool if you keep it up to date, if you continually post things on there. I notice as soon as I see somebody getting recommendations from their friends or former colleagues, or where they appear to be extremely active, I usually think in my mind, this person's looking for work. Yes, yeah. Because they haven't done this for the last 4 years. Why would they suddenly be doing it now? And obviously joining groups as well, I think, is a great way to use LinkedIn. But it's challenging. It's got to be a challenging balancing act of making it clear that you're looking for something, at the same time not look as though you've been out of favor or dropped by somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. My father worked for one company for 40 years and then he retired. I've had 4 careers, okay, and my kids will probably have 10 careers, okay? Mm-hmm. So gone are the days, I think, where you work certainly for one company forever. That's extremely rare. And so the fact that you've lost your job or you're looking, I think, is more normal these days. And our clients understand that the work continuity can be choppier just for lots of different reasons. I concur with you though. Going on LinkedIn and posting, open for work, et cetera, does, I think from an image perspective, for executive placements like we work with, I'm not sure that sends the right message to the marketplace. I think I would follow your advice on that, and I think that's good advice.
And maybe just one last one on this, from a candidate perspective, attending meetings in person versus doing it online, increasingly it's a lot more inexpensive to attend a meeting online, and you can go there and you can approach the people you want to approach. Yeah. Whereas going to these meetings obviously is an investment. Would you recommend candidates to make that investment if they're in the market? I'm
not sure that there's a single answer to that. Here's what I would say. If you're looking for your next opportunity and you want to be networking with the right people, it is an investment. It's an investment in your time. You probably are going to spend some money on it. Be strategic about it. I think I mentioned earlier with the resume, meeting with people first and then following up with a resume. Well, if a conference is the best way to meet the people that you need to meet, okay, for your strategic job search, then I say spend the money, okay? Yeah. If it isn't, then don't. But individuals call me, and again, this happens weekly, and they say, well, what should I do? It is about being deep and narrow in your strategic job search, okay, as a candidate. So if that, again, deep and narrow means find 10 or so companies that you think you can add value to, that you think you would like to work for, and then prove your hypothesis by meeting with people. Okay, by talking to those that work in that organization. Sometimes that's at a conference, okay, that could work. It may be a coffee, it may be a Zoom meeting, but that's the right way to find your next position in terms of networking.
So from your perspective, face-to-face is still in?
Yes, very much so, particularly for executive placements, the levels that we work in our organization.
So in that retained search, in that being the representative of the client, you still get approached by potential candidates saying, I'm looking at LinkedIn, I think that's the best way for me to find a job. Suggestions, recommendations, how candidates can leverage LinkedIn better.
Well, Aidan, you have 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, I believe. Way more than I do. How do you find using LinkedIn best leverages, who you are and how you connect with people?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, David. I think that LinkedIn, in some ways, is actually it's not that easy a platform to use, so you have to work it quite hard. I think it's very important for an executive, in particular, to be seen as a thought leader. So thought leadership means regular postings on things that are important to you or to the potential jobs that you may be seeking now or in the future. So thinking of that with a purpose is very, very important. I believe that connections, you said 30,000, in fact, you're limited to 30,000, but I've actually ended up with more in terms of followers. But I've done that by also joining groups, focusing on groups that have an agri focus, sales and marketing focus, food business focus. I think those groups can be a very powerful way also. But the number one thing I've noticed is that when somebody calls me and says, I'm thinking of leaving my company, I think they might be letting me go, I'm not sure what my future is going to be, they then start to look at LinkedIn. And I think that that's too late. Yeah. I think you have to be thinking about it well in advance of any possible potential new future that you may be considering or might be thrust upon you at a moment's notice. I
like what you're saying. This notion of being different at certain times, whether you're with a job or without a job, people notice that. Okay, and it feels to me like what you're saying, and I like this. If with LinkedIn or any social platform, you need to be in or out, and you need to be feeding it and using it. And it needs to be a normal part of your career and day and work, really, or not. I think these roller coasters we see with some candidates that as soon as something happens, all of a sudden they're prolific on LinkedIn, or others that use it like Facebook. I think those are mistakes.
Yeah. Well, I think LinkedIn is definitely in and not out, but I also really counsel people not to use LinkedIn as a platform for their own personal life or for their political opinions, or I suggest that you keep it as anodyne as possible from that perspective and focus on the business of business.
Yeah, part of the reference checks that we often do are social media reference checks for our candidates. And so we look at not only, again, LinkedIn, it's we have a provider that goes out and looks at all of what an executive places on the internet. And so these are things that I think candidates have to be very, very careful about in how they portray themselves. I don't think that's a shocker to anybody. Our clients look at this. They want to make sure that somebody at a CFO or a CEO level, an executive level, is going to not come with any sort of social media baggage.
Great. David, so within the theme of what's in, what's out for 2024, when you talk to clients, what would you say the three things they need to think about from the perspective of the executives that they're seeking?
I think it's more important than ever that our clients have clarity about what they're looking for in the role. Oftentimes we see a bit of deviation from what they think they need as to what they really need, and the ability to pause before you actually conduct an executive search and really dig into what are the details and what are the deliverables for this role is as important or more important than ever. Number two, I think a holistic leader tends to be in higher demand these days. Holistic being a balance of technical skills, a person that is a servant leader, that is ability to deal with ambiguity is high. We continue to live in times that are turbulent in lots of different ways, and having somebody that is able to manage those changes and differences in the people that they lead, in the markets that they serve, and the boards that they work with, all of that is, again, more important than ever. The last would be just sort of an emotional intelligence. That's not new. We talk about leaders that have a good ego to capability quotient, where they understand and have confidence in themselves, but at the same time, they realize where their limitations begin and end, and could work with others in order to get things done and deliverables for the organization completed. I'd ask the same of you as a candidate, as you think about individuals that you talk to or that we do when people call us all the time. What do you think the top three sort of things to think about from a candidate perspective in 2024 are?
Well, I hope I'm going to get three, but we'll give it a go, David. I suppose, again, clarity of what you're looking for. I think a lot of people tumble into interviews or on an exploration, on a look-see. Very unwise in my view. Are you going to accept the idea of relocating to where this company is? Do you really want to work with a company like this? Or is this just something that you see as a stopgap between this and your next position? I think it's very important for candidates to think about upskilling themselves. We have come across phrases that we've never heard before, like the chat GPT did not effectively exist less than 18 months ago as something in the lexicon. So are you studying AI? Are you learning how technology will change your business? Have you conducted or have you gone on courses that perhaps would help you with those skills? I think those are very important things. Again, from a candidate perspective, I think making sure it's clear to people who are looking at you in the way you represent yourself. Social media tends to be the thing we think about, but it may be in other aspects. Who you are, what you bring to the table, what your skill set is, how you think differently. And of course, executives are expected to be thought leaders. So how have you demonstrated thought leadership in your business? And that could be at work or that could be outside of work, but those leadership skills don't generate themselves. So you have to demonstrate that you've got them if you want somebody to give you the job of leading their organization.
I love that last one. I think about the best candidates that we interview for positions. Oftentimes, the tipping point for them is great questions that they ask, right? Mm-hmm. All of our candidates tend to be highly qualified. They're really good at what they do, and they're very intelligent, and they have had lots of experience. But what questions do they ask, during a job seeking process, et cetera? Those tend to really differentiate candidates from my perspective, and I think that's part of what you said, and I think that's super key.
So, with your 4 careers and your recent experience, could you summarize what perhaps will be different in 2024? What you expect specifically? Perhaps let's just focus on a corporation looking for a new leader, looking for a new executive, looking for somebody who's going to transform the future of the business in a relatively short period of time. What's your recommendation for looking in 2024?
I think get started soon. I do think it's still taking a little bit longer to find placements. Is it 20% longer? I'm not sure, but finding people usually isn't the issue for us. We're not just finders. We earn our money really by what happens after you find the individuals. That's usually the easy part. easier part to find individuals. So if candidates come to us and want to hire a leader this year, we're recommending that they start, soon. I mean, and positions are different and timing is different with retirements, et cetera. But I think finding the right candidates it's taking a little bit longer to do that. The other thing that I would say is that in 2024, your ability to find multiple candidates with the same level of expertise, I think that seems to have changed over the last year or two. So when we look at lists or sort of short lists of qualified candidates, the differences sometimes between the number one and the number two candidate can be big. Okay, they're both qualified for the organization, but one is a super great fit, culturally perfect, it brings the expertise. Number two maybe has a few things that they need to work on. So particularly in 2023, we saw this gap between kind of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 when we had multiple candidates to look at. I think that's going to remain the case in 2024.
Great. David, thank you very much. This is a fascinating conversation. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to seeing your predictions move forward in 2024.
Always great to talk to you, Aidan. Thank you so much.